Dr. Elias Ward had never thought a single question could make him famous across multiple star systems. He had spent most of his life studying alien physiology, documenting strange metabolisms, and translating chemical signals into human-understandable data. But nothing had prepared him for the moment when Ressa, the young alien scholar from the Glirian Empire, asked the words that would echo in his mind for years. Can you mate multiple times without your tool breaking? That's impossible. The research station hung in the void between two unremarkable stars, a neutral place for cross-species learning. Humans, Glirians, Vortons, and several other species crowded the lecture halls, all trying to understand one another. It was a marvel of cooperation. Species that would otherwise never meet shared a single space for the sake of knowledge. And yet, in that space, something as simple as reproduction could spark confusion, laughter, and disbelief. Elias had been preparing to speak on human biology, detailing the extraordinary resilience of their bodies. He had carefully avoided any sensational language, knowing that most alien cultures had very strict rules about personal and biological topics. But today, his words had unintentionally poked the curiosity of every scientist in the room. Humans, unlike most species in this sector, had bodies built for endurance, recovery, and adaptation. What took one species years to recover from could be handled by a human in a matter of weeks, sometimes days. Ressa was perched on a floating chair, her violet skin glowing faintly under the soft light of the lecture hall. Her large eyes, filled with both curiosity and horror, followed every human movement like she was trying to map an entirely new dimension. When she had spoken, her voice had a mixture of awe and disbelief. Other aliens looked shocked, and a few of them whispered to one another, their own physiologies suddenly feeling fragile by comparison. Elias blinked and tried to keep a straight face. He knew the question was awkward, but he had to answer it carefully. Yes, he said finally, keeping his tone professional. Humans can recover from reproductive activity multiple times without permanent damage. It is not common among most species, but it is part of our evolutionary design. There was a moment of silence. Then the lecture hall erupted, not in anger but in laughter. Some of the aliens covered their faces with their hands, others whispered to neighbors with wide eyes. The Vortons, who had 6 limbs and a complicated metabolism, looked almost offended by the idea. One of them muttered something under his breath about reckless humans. Ressa, however, did not laugh. She tilted her head, studying Elias as if he were a walking puzzle. "You are joking," she said finally. Her voice was low, a quiet tremor of disbelief. No species in recorded history can withstand such strain. The body would fail, the organ would fail. That is impossible. Elias shook his head, smiling politely. It is not impossible for humans. Our bodies are resilient. We have evolved to recover quickly from injuries, fatigue, and even extreme reproductive cycles. That is why humans survive situations that would be fatal to other species. Her large eyes narrowed. She seemed to process the words, turning them over in her mind. Then she leaned forward, her tentacle-like appendages curling slightly. "Show me," she demanded. "I must see the proof. If what you say is true, then the records of your species are incomplete. This phenomenon must be documented." Elias felt a twinge of excitement. It was rare for an alien scholar to demand evidence so directly. Usually, they were content to read reports, analyze data, or observe from a safe distance. Ressa was different. She wanted knowledge firsthand and unfiltered. It was the kind of challenge that could make a human's career or put them under scrutiny for unethical practices. But Elias was confident. Humans had survived far worse than curious aliens. The following week, the lecture hall became a controlled testing ground. The aliens were curious but cautious, following strict ethical guidelines. Humans presented their data, heart rates, recovery times, cellular regeneration statistics, and more. Every chart and graph seemed to widen alien eyes, especially T-Ressa's. The Glirian physiology, delicate and prone to damage, could not comprehend how one species could endure repeated strain without lasting consequences. During breaks, aliens approached Elias with quiet questions. "How do your cells repair themselves so quickly?" one asked. "Is it something in your DNA?" Another wanted to know if humans had specific chemical triggers to enhance recovery. Elias explained simply. It was a combination of genetics, metabolism, and the human ability to adapt mentally and physically. Humans, unlike many species, did not have a fixed limit to what their bodies could endure, as long as basic needs, food, rest, and hydration, were met. Teresa, however, was not satisfied with theoretical answers. She observed humans closely, noting how they moved, ate, and rested. She asked endless questions, trying to understand why humans could withstand stressors that would incapacitate her own species. She did not laugh at them anymore. Instead, she seemed anxious, almost fearful. Elias noticed that her fascination had shifted from curiosity to a subtle form of respect, or perhaps realization. "You are built differently," she admitted one day as they walked through the station's gardens. The plants floated gently in zero gravity, their roots suspended in nutrient-rich gel. Humans and aliens alike moved carefully, avoiding the delicate flora. "Your species, it defies the rules of life we know. I do not fully understand, yet I see the evidence. It is unsettling." Elias smiled. "It is not magic, it is biology. Evolution shaped us to survive, adapt, and recover. We are persistent in every sense of the word. That is why humans have expanded across planets that other species could not inhabit. That is why we endure what others cannot." Teresa's gaze lingered on him. "Persistence, yes, that is the word, but it is more than that. You endure not only physically but mentally, emotionally. You do not break easily. That is extraordinary." As the week ended, the lecture hall filled with whispers about humans. Some species debated whether humans should be classified as a high-resilient species, capable of surviving threats that would devastate others. Others speculated about the implications for diplomacy, war, and colonization. In the quiet of her quarters, Teresa wrote extensive notes, revising the galactic codices. Humans were no longer a species to be dismissed as fragile or limited. They were something else entirely. Elias, meanwhile, reflected on the events with a mix of pride and amusement. He had not intended to shock anyone. He had only presented the truth. Yet, in the process, he had revealed something profound. Humans were remarkable not because of strength, speed, or intelligence alone, but because they were unbreakable in ways the galaxy did not expect. The final day of the seminar brought an unexpected turn. Teresa approached Elias with a small device, a recording instrument of her own design. "I wish to record your findings," she said, her voice steady but urgent. "Not just your data, but your observations, your methods, your explanations. The galaxy needs to understand your species. If what you say is true, it is not merely biology, it is a lesson." Elias nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. "Then let us begin," he said. And as they started the recording, humans and aliens alike watched, listened, and learned. A single question, awkward, shocking, and completely unexpected, had opened a window into the true nature of humanity. By the time the session ended, whispers had grown into discussions, discussions into debates, and debates into plans for further study. The Glirian Empire, the Vortons, and even the cautious Antraxians began to rethink their assumptions. Humans, once considered ordinary and fragile, were now recognized as extraordinary, not because they had superior weapons or intelligence, but because their very bodies, minds, and spirits were built to endure and recover. And somewhere in the back of his mind, Elias knew that this was only the beginning. A single question had revealed a truth that would ripple across the stars. Humanity was not just another species. Humanity was resilient, adaptable, and unbreakable in ways the galaxy had never imagined. Teresa, observing quietly, finally smiled, a small, genuine expression of respect. She had learned a lesson she would never forget. Humans were different. And in the vast, unpredictable universe, that difference might be the most powerful force of all. The galaxy had never seen humans like this before. News of the seminar spread quickly across the research station and through the vast network of interstellar communication, reaching scholars and leaders on dozens of worlds. Everywhere, the same question echoed. How could a species endure what other species could not? The humans themselves were mostly oblivious to the stir they were causing. To them, recovery, adaptation, and persistence were simply part of life. It was normal to get hurt, to fail, and to try again. That was their nature. Dr. Elias Ward noticed the change immediately. Even outside the seminar, aliens treated humans differently now. When humans entered a room, conversations would pause and eyes would follow them, not with hostility but with a mix of awe and wariness. Some species seemed almost uncomfortable, as if humans reminded them of a truth they had tried to ignore. Most species were fragile and most species were limited. Humans were neither. Teresa continued to observe closely. She spent hours walking among humans, asking questions about how they lived, trained, and recovered. "You do not tire as quickly as others," she noted one afternoon while walking through the hydroponic gardens. Her tentacle-like arms moved lightly over the floating plants, careful not to disturb them. "Even when others rest for long periods after exertion, you continue as though nothing has happened." Elias smiled, adjusting the sleeve of his lab coat. "That is true. Humans are built for repetition, for endurance, for recovery. Our bodies and minds are designed to keep going. Even when we fail or get hurt, we adapt. We try again." Teresa frowned, not entirely convinced. "But there must be limits. Every body has limits." "How do you surpass them?" Elias shrugged. "Limits exist, yes, but our limits are higher than most species, and often the true limit is not physical, it is mental. If a human believes they can continue, they often can. We are persistent, almost stubbornly so. It is an evolutionary advantage." Her eyes widened. She had read countless reports of species that could survive harsh climates, extreme gravity, and deadly diseases. But humans were different. They were adaptable in every sense, not just in survival but in recovery, in endurance, in mental resilience. And unlike most species, humans did not collapse after repeated strain, they became stronger. The more Teresa observed, the more unsettled she became. On her home planet, the Glerians had once been strong, but their biology had limits that could not be overcome. Excessive strain led to failure, and even advanced medical treatments could not reverse certain damages. To see humans continue without permanent harm challenged everything she had learned. It was as if humans had rewritten the rules of biology itself. Meanwhile, word of the human resilience spread beyond the research station. Other species began sending their own representatives to witness humans firsthand. Some were skeptical, others were openly fearful. There were debates in star councils, discussions in scientific forums, and even military speculation. Could humans survive conditions that would destroy a fleet of other species' soldiers? Could they endure injuries, extreme environments, and repeated stress that would be fatal to everyone else? The answer seemed to be yes. Elias noticed the shift. Some aliens who had once treated humans as equals or inferiors now seemed cautious, almost respectful. They asked more questions, watched more closely, and sometimes hesitated to issue commands when humans were involved. It was a subtle change, but it was there. Humans were no longer just another species. They were a new benchmark for endurance, a living standard for resilience. One day, during a simulated environment exercise, Teresa decided to put humans to the test in a controlled scenario. The simulation was designed to be demanding, extreme temperatures, low oxygen levels, fluctuating gravity. Other species were expected to fail within hours. Humans, however, handled the challenge with surprising ease. They struggled, yes, but they adapted, adjusting their movements and breathing patterns. When fatigue threatened, they rested briefly and resumed. Every failure was temporary. Every obstacle was a lesson. Teresa watched silently, her violet skin glowing faintly under the simulated sun. She had seen many species collapse under minor stress, but humans continued, hour after hour, demonstrating persistence that seemed almost unnatural. She realized that the question that had begun the seminar, about reproduction and endurance, was only the beginning. Humans were not just physically resilient. Their minds, their emotions, and their willpower allowed them to survive in ways no other species could. By the end of the simulation, the aliens were exhausted. Many of them needed medical attention, while humans walked away mostly unharmed. Even Elias, who had predicted their success, felt a sense of awe. He knew humans were resilient, but seeing it displayed so vividly in front of alien observers was different. It was undeniable proof. Humans could endure conditions that others could not, and they could continue doing so indefinitely if necessary. Afterward, Teresa approached Elias, her expression thoughtful. "Your species, it is remarkable," she said quietly. "I see now that what you described is only part of the truth. Humans do not merely survive, they adapt. They endure, they recover. And they continue no matter the challenge. That is extraordinary." Elias nodded. "It is what makes humans different. We are persistent. We keep trying, even when failure is certain. That is why humans have colonized planets others would consider uninhabitable. That is why we survive conditions that destroy other species. Our biology supports endurance, but our will pushes us further." The implications were enormous. Scholars debated what this meant for the future of interstellar relations. If humans were capable of surviving and thriving in situations that would cripple other species, they could become key allies or formidable opponents. Some leaders began considering humans in terms of strategy, evaluating the potential benefits and risks of partnering with a species whose endurance exceeded all expectations. Teresa, meanwhile, continued her personal study. She followed humans on excursions, observed them in daily life, and recorded everything meticulously. She noted their ability to recover from injury, to maintain focus under stress, and to maintain morale even in challenging conditions. She recorded their social interactions, their humor, and their adaptability. It became clear to her that human resilience was not merely physical. It was deeply ingrained in their culture, their psychology, and their very way of life. Elias watched her work with a mixture of pride and curiosity. He had dedicated his life to studying alien biology, but now he realized that humans themselves were an extraordinary subject. Their strength, endurance, and adaptability were unmatched, not just among species on this station, but perhaps across the entire galaxy. And Teresa, the alien who had once doubted him, was slowly coming to understand this truth. As days turned into weeks, the research station began to feel different. Humans moved with confidence, aliens watched with caution, and debates about human resilience filled the halls. Even casual encounters were tinged with fascination. When humans trained, other species observed quietly. When humans completed tasks that seemed impossible, whispers spread quickly. The humans themselves were mostly unaware of the effect they had on those around them. To them, doing their best, recovering and continuing was normal. One evening, as the artificial sun of the station dimmed to simulate night, Teresa approached Elias once more. She had been quiet all day, taking notes and reviewing data. Now her voice was measured but intense. "Dr. Ward, I understand now that your species, resilience, is unlike anything I have studied. But there is something more. Your persistence, it is not just biological, it is cultural. It is in how you live, how you think, how you approach every challenge. That is what makes humans extraordinary, not one but all together. Elias smiled, feeling a mix of pride and humility. Yes, he said softly, humans endure, adapt, and survive because we are built that way. But more importantly, we do it because we believe in continuing. We believe in trying again. That is the real advantage. That is the human way. Teresa considered this for a long moment, her glowing skin reflecting the soft light. Then it is not merely your bodies, she said finally. It is your spirit, your will. That is why you are different. That is why you are remarkable. By the end of the week, the station had been transformed. Humans were no longer just another species among many. They were a standard of resilience, a measure against which others compared themselves. Alien scholars debated their limits, commanders considered their potential, and even casual observers watched with awe. Every human action, every recovery, every repeated effort reinforced the truth. Humans endured, and they did not break. Elias walked through the station corridors, observing humans and aliens alike. The change was subtle but unmistakable. Humans were now seen as persistent, adaptable, and unbreakable in ways no other species could match. They were admired, studied, and sometimes feared. And in this realization lay the first hint of something far greater, a galaxy slowly awakening to the idea that humans were not ordinary. They were extraordinary. Teresa, observing quietly from a distance, recorded her final notes for the week. She had come to the station skeptical, curious, and cautious. She would leave with a new understanding. Humans were not simply survivors. They were a species built to endure, to recover, and to persist. And in a galaxy filled with fragile species, that ability would shape the course of history in ways no one could yet imagine. And somewhere in the quiet of her thoughts, she repeated the question that had begun it all. How can one species endure so much and still continue? How is that possible? Elias, walking past the observation deck, could only smile. He knew the answer. Humans did not stop. Humans did not break. Humans simply continued. The calm that had settled over the research station was shattered one morning by a warning signal that echoed through the corridors. Red lights flashed, and the deep hum of the station's engines seemed to grow louder, vibrating through the floor panels. Humans and aliens alike hurried to the observation decks, their eyes widening as they saw the approaching disaster. A rogue asteroid cluster, far larger than any previous simulations, was on a collision course with a nearby colony world. Elias felt a rush of adrenaline. This was no ordinary simulation. The colony was home to thousands of species, including humans, Glirians, and Vortons. If the asteroid struck, the damage would be catastrophic. Conventional defense systems could intercept some of the smaller rocks, but the sheer size and speed of the cluster made the situation dire. Every species present at the station watched anxiously, realizing that survival depended not only on technology but on adaptability and endurance. The council called an emergency meeting. Leaders of all represented species gathered in the largest chamber, floating above the station's central core. Holographic projections of the asteroid field rotated slowly in the center of the room. The images showed massive boulders hurtling through space, their surfaces jagged and irregular. "This is unlike anything we have ever faced," said the Vorton commander, his 6 limbs resting tensely on the control panel. "Standard defense measures will fail. We need solutions now." Elias stepped forward, his human colleagues flanking him. "There is one way to minimize the destruction," he said. "We can deploy humans directly in the field to assist with diversion and stabilization. Our endurance allows us to operate in conditions other species cannot survive for extended periods. We can act where others would fail." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some alien leaders looked skeptical. "You are suggesting sending humans into direct danger?" asked a Glirian scientist, her voice tinged with disbelief. That is reckless. Elias shook his head. Not reckless, calculated. Humans can recover from injuries and extreme fatigue far faster than any other species. Our bodies are built for repeated exertion. We can work in dangerous conditions for hours, even days if needed. We do not tire in the same way others do. Teresa, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. He is correct. I have observed it myself. Humans endure what would incapacitate any other species. It is astonishing. If anyone can intervene directly in this scenario, humans are our best chance. After a tense debate, the council agreed. A team of humans, led by Elias, would deploy to the asteroid field to assist with stabilization measures. It was dangerous, yes, but no other species had the endurance or recovery abilities needed for such a mission. Preparations began immediately. The humans donned reinforced suits equipped with thrusters, energy shields, and advanced communication devices. Every piece of equipment was designed to maximize efficiency while minimizing risk, but the humans themselves were the true advantage. As they launched, Teresa watched from the station. Her heart raced, not out of fear but out of awe. She had seen simulations fail, tests collapse, and species falter under stress. But humans were different. She had never witnessed anything like this level of persistence. She hoped it would be enough. The asteroid field was chaotic. Massive rocks tumbled unpredictably, and smaller fragments whirled around them like deadly shrapnel. Other species would have been crushed in minutes. The humans, however, moved with precision, adjusting their positions continuously. Their thrusters allowed them to dart between obstacles, and their suits absorbed impacts that would have shattered weaker bodies. Elias coordinated the team, issuing instructions calmly even as the rocks threatened from every direction. "Focus on the largest ones first," he said. "Stabilize rotation, then push smaller fragments aside. Work in pairs, conserve energy when possible, and trust your instincts." Hours passed. Fatigue began to set in, even for humans, but they adapted. When one teammate grew exhausted, another took over, rotating responsibilities seamlessly. Their bodies ached, but they continued. Small injuries occurred, a cut, a bruised shoulder, but they were minor and recoverable. Humans thrived under conditions designed to break others. On the station, alien observers watched in disbelief. "They are still moving," whispered one Vorton, his 6 eyes wide. "Hours in and they are not slowing." Teresa's skin glowed faintly, a sign of her intense focus. "It is the same as the reproductive endurance I once questioned," she murmured. "But now I see it applied on a grand scale. Their persistence is beyond comprehension." As the asteroid field began to thin, thanks to the humans' intervention, the first real crisis occurred. A massive boulder, larger than any other in the cluster, broke from the main formation and headed straight for the colony. Conventional shielding could not stop it in time. Elias assessed the situation quickly. "We can't rely on technology alone. This is where humans make the difference. We need to slow it down manually with thrusters and physical stabilization measures." The team worked as one. Elias positioned himself alongside 2 other humans, gripping the surface of the massive rock with magnetic anchors. Thrusters flared, and they pushed with all their strength. It was exhausting work. Muscles burned, arms ached, and sweat soaked through their suits, but they kept moving. Every push slowed the asteroid just enough, preventing a direct collision with the colony. Teresa's gaze never left the viewport. She could hardly believe what she was seeing. Other species had tried similar maneuvers in simulations, but the humans were achieving results no one thought possible. "They are enduring beyond any expectation," she whispered. Night fell in the simulation cycle, and the humans did not stop. They rotated tasks, took short rests, and continued. Recovery periods were brief, but effective. Humans had the rare ability to regain energy and strength quickly, allowing them to maintain high levels of performance far longer than anyone else. When the colony's automated systems failed in one sector, humans repaired them under dangerous conditions, navigating debris and radiation without hesitation. Several hours later, the asteroid field had been largely neutralized. Smaller fragments were deflected, and the massive boulder had been slowed just enough to be captured by automated containment grids. The colony was safe. Humans had made the difference. When they returned to the station, the humans were exhausted, bruised, and sweaty, but they were alive. Alien observers greeted them with cautious admiration. The Vorton commander stepped forward, his voice heavy with respect. I have never seen anything like this. Your species, it is extraordinary. Teresa approached Elias, her expression unreadable at first. Then slowly a small smile appeared. I understand now, she said. Your endurance, your persistence, your ability to continue when all others would fail, it is not just physical. It is a combination of body, mind, and will. You have saved the colony where all others would have failed. Humans, you are remarkable. Elias nodded, feeling both pride and humility. It is what humans do. We do not give up. We do not break easily. We adapt, recover, and continue. It is why we survive, why we thrive, and why we endure. Across the station, discussions began immediately. Scholars debated the implications of what had just occurred. Military leaders considered strategies involving humans, recognizing their endurance as a unique asset. Other species were forced to reconsider assumptions about human limitations. A quiet respect had settled over the station, and with it, the recognition that humans were unlike any species the galaxy had encountered before. In the quiet aftermath, Elias and Teresa walked together through the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly before them, countless worlds waiting to be explored. You've changed the way the galaxy sees humans, Teresa said softly. Not just as a species, but as a standard. Others will measure themselves against your endurance. Others will question whether they can match it. Elias glanced at her, understanding the gravity of her words. We don't ask for recognition, he said. We simply continue, and when challenges arise, we face them. That is the human way. Teresa considered this, her violet skin reflecting the starlight. Then it is not just your bodies that are remarkable. It is your spirit, your determination, your persistence. That is why humans endure where others would fail. The station slowly returned to normal operations, but the memory of the asteroid crisis lingered. Humans had proven their resilience, adaptability, and persistence in a real, life-threatening scenario. Aliens would not forget it. Neither would Elias, who understood better than ever that human endurance was not just a biological trait. It was a force that could shape the future of entire worlds. And somewhere, deep in the vastness of space, humans continued to work, repair, and explore. Their bodies ached, their energy waned, but they did not stop. Every challenge was met with persistence. Every obstacle was an opportunity to adapt. And in the quiet moments between tasks, Elias realized a truth that had become clearer than ever. Humans did not just survive. Humans endured. Humans continued. And that was a power the galaxy had only just begun to understand. The calm after the asteroid crisis did not last long. Only days after the humans returned to the station, an urgent alert rang through every corridor. This time, it was not a natural disaster or an environmental hazard. Sensors had detected a massive energy anomaly moving toward the neutral sector, one that no species had ever encountered before. Entire fleets scrambled to respond, but initial scans revealed it was not a weapon or a known cosmic event. It pulsed with energy unlike anything recorded, warping space around it as it traveled. Elias and the human team were summoned immediately. The council gathered once more, this time with tension thicker than ever. The alien leaders debated strategies, but their usual plans seemed useless. Shields could absorb some of the energy, but the magnitude of the anomaly exceeded the capacity of even the largest fleets. Communications began to fail intermittently, and smaller ships were already reporting structural damage just from the anomaly's approach. "This is unlike anything we've faced," said the Vorten commander, his 6 limbs tapping nervously on the holographic console. "All defenses are failing. We cannot stop it with technology alone." Elias stepped forward, feeling the familiar rush of determination. He had witnessed humanity endure extreme conditions before, but this challenge was on a completely different level. It was not a localized danger like an asteroid cluster. This anomaly could impact entire sectors, threatening countless colonies and species. "Humans can help," he said. "We have endurance, adaptability, and the ability to operate in extreme environments where others would fail. We may be the only species capable of surviving long enough to understand this phenomenon and take action." Teresa watched closely. She had seen humans excel in controlled simulations and life-threatening asteroid fields, but now she realized the stakes were far higher. "I do not know if your species can withstand this," she said quietly, "but if anyone can, it is humans." Preparations began immediately. Humans were outfitted with reinforced suits capable of withstanding high-energy exposure, radiation shielding, and life support systems that could sustain them for extended periods. Every team member trained for the unknown, adjusting to conditions that no simulation could fully replicate. While equipment could provide protection, it was human persistence, mental endurance, and quick thinking that would be the real advantage. The anomaly approached at incredible speed, its energy waves distorting nearby space. Communication with distant ships became erratic, and navigational systems began to fail under its influence. Aliens watched from the station with a mixture of fear and fascination. Humans launched in small, maneuverable craft designed to enter the anomaly's path and gather data, while attempting to stabilize its energy signature. Elias led the mission, coordinating the team as they approached the edge of the phenomenon. As they entered the first wave of distorted energy, their instruments went haywire. The craft shook violently, and lights flickered unpredictably. Other species would have panicked. Human reactions, however, were swift and coordinated. Adjustments were made instantly, thrusters fired in precise sequences, and humans adapted to the chaotic forces around them. Hours passed in the anomaly's unstable field. Energy pulses surged unpredictably, and visibility dropped to near zero. Humans worked in pairs, alternating tasks to conserve energy. Small injuries occurred: burns from energy arcs, bruises from sudden jolts, but these were minor and recoverable. Humans continued without hesitation. Each obstacle was met with careful observation, calculation, and persistence. Teresa monitored them from the station. Her skin glowed faintly under the observation lights as she watched. She had trained for years to survive in extreme conditions, but nothing had prepared her for human adaptability. Every adjustment, every maneuver, every recovery impressed her beyond words. She realized that human endurance was not just physical, it was mental, emotional, and cultural. Humans did not give up. Humans adapted. Humans persisted. As the anomaly intensified, the humans faced their most dangerous challenge yet. A massive energy wave approached, threatening to destroy their craft and scatter the team. Elias made a quick decision. "We need to synchronize thrusters and stabilize the craft manually," he said, his voice calm despite the danger. "Move as one, trust each other. We can survive this if we work together." The humans executed the plan with precision. Thrusters flared, anchors engaged, and every movement was calculated. The energy wave hit, slamming their craft with unimaginable force. Instruments sparked and the hull creaked under pressure. But humans endured. Even when systems failed, they adapted, using manual overrides, adjusting positions, and relying on instinct honed through years of survival, training, and experience. After hours of relentless effort, the anomaly began to stabilize. Its chaotic energy pulses became more predictable, and instruments recorded measurable decreases in volatility. Humans had held their ground, gathering vital data and applying techniques that no alien species could have managed. The anomaly had not been eliminated, but it had been slowed, its effects minimized, and its behavior understood far more than anyone had thought possible. When the humans returned to the station, the Council greeted them with a mixture of relief and astonishment. Aliens who had doubted them now regarded them with deep respect. The Vorten commander stepped forward, his eyes wide. "I cannot believe it. Your species, it survives where all others would fail. You endure, adapt, and continue. It is beyond understanding." Teresa approached Elias, her violet skin glowing softly. "I have seen it now," she said. "Not just survival, not just recovery, but persistence under conditions no other species could endure. Humans do not stop. You do not give up. You continue, even when failure seems certain. That is what makes you extraordinary." Elias nodded, feeling a mixture of pride and quiet satisfaction. "It is what humans do. We face challenges, we adapt, we endure, and we continue no matter how difficult the situation." The implications were enormous. Alien scholars and strategists began to reconsider their assumptions about human limitations. Humans were no longer simply another species. They were a standard by which others measured endurance, resilience, and persistence. Every colony, every fleet, and every research facility that had observed humans now understood that human endurance was a unique and powerful trait that could shape the future of the galaxy. Over the following days, humans continued to monitor the anomaly. Each foray into its energy field tested their limits, yet they persisted. Minor injuries healed quickly, fatigue was managed through careful rotation, and morale remained high. Humans adapted to conditions that would have destroyed other species, applying quick thinking, collaboration, and relentless persistence to every obstacle. Teresa followed their work closely, documenting every detail. She noted how humans adapted strategies on the fly, how they remained calm under intense pressure, and how their bodies and minds recovered faster than any other species could. Her reports to the Council emphasized a truth that had become undeniable. Humans were extraordinary, not because they were invincible, but because they were relentless. They endured where others broke. They persisted where others failed. By the time the anomaly's path had been understood and partially contained, the humans had proven their abilities in a real, high-stakes scenario far beyond any simulation. They had survived energy forces that distorted space, faced injuries that would have incapacitated other species, and endured continuous stress for hours on end. Their success was not a result of luck, technology, or superior weaponry. It was the direct result of human endurance, persistence, and willpower. In the aftermath, the Council held a formal recognition of the humans' achievement. Leaders from every species present acknowledged the extraordinary efforts of the team. Humans were praised not only for their physical resilience, but for their adaptability, teamwork, and unshakable determination. Elias, standing among his exhausted colleagues, understood the significance. Humans had changed the galaxy's perception of them in one continuous demonstration of strength, intelligence, and persistence. Teresa, recording her final notes on the anomaly, looked at Elias with admiration. "I understand now," she said. "Your species is not just strong. You are persistent, adaptable, and unbreakable in ways no other species can match. Your endurance shapes the galaxy more than any weapon or fleet ever could. That is the truth. That is why humans are extraordinary." Elias smiled quietly. "We do not seek praise. We do not seek recognition. We simply continue. That is the human way. And when challenges arise, we face them. We endure. We persist. We survive. The anomaly eventually moved beyond the neutral sector, leaving behind a trail of data, understanding, and awe. The humans had endured where all others would have failed, and the galaxy would never forget it. Aliens now knew that humans were not just another species. They were a force defined by persistence, endurance, and the relentless will to continue. As the station returned to routine, humans quietly repaired their suits, reviewed data, and prepared for whatever challenge might come next. They had faced the impossible and survived. Their bodies ached, their energy waned, but they did not stop. They adapted, recovered, and continued. It was not a matter of pride, it was a matter of instinct, culture, and nature. Teresa observed them one last time before leaving the station for her homeworld. "The galaxy will never underestimate humans again," she said softly. "Your persistence, your endurance, your unbreakable will, it is unmatched. You are not merely survivors. You are the standard by which all others will be measured." Elias nodded, knowing she spoke the truth. Humans did not stop. Humans did not break. Humans endured, persisted, and survived. And in a galaxy filled with fragile, limited species, that endurance would shape the future in ways no one had yet imagined. And somewhere in the infinite expanse of space, humans continued their work, their exploration, their adaptation. Challenges would come, obstacles would rise, and dangers would appear, but humans would meet them head-on. They would endure, they would adapt, they would persist, and in every action they would prove once more that humanity was extraordinary.